You've tuned into Attachment to Nature as a Path to Climate Advocacy. I'm Dr. Sarah Stone, but to begin, I'd like you to meet a younger me. Here I am at age 12 in middle school. I have a memory about a particular day when my class went and gathered in the library to hear a guest speaker. I can't remember who the speaker was or where they were from, but I do remember the message. It was about recycling. And I'm sure that I had heard about recycling before, but it was not a part of my practical life. And this time in rural Idaho in 1944, no one talked about it and no one did it. On this day, my mind was open for the first time about waste and how it's harming our environment. Not only that, but I left feeling inspired that I, as a 12-year-old, could do something about it. I went home and excitedly told my mom all about what I had learned. I asked her if we could start recycling at home, and she wasn't even sure if there was a way to recycle in our little town. But we soon found one in the Yellow Pages. There was a small warehouse on the north end of the town that was open a few hours each week to receive recycling drop-offs. It was not unlike this one in this photo. And so I created and labeled boxes in our kitchen for the different types of recycling: plastic, cardboard, paper, aluminum, glass. And after collecting for a few weeks, we would take these to the warehouse and drop them off. I felt so good that I was doing something good for the earth. And because of this, library talk in 1994 in middle school, recycling from that point on became a personal habit of mine, and it has been for the last 30 years. And, we've recently come to learn that recycling wasn't all it's cracked up to be, especially with plastics. The big promises they had about not putting waste into the earth, definitely haven't panned out. But nonetheless, having exposure to an environmental topic in my youth, it drove me to be more conscious about the environment as an adult. In 2017, I started a nonprofit 501c3 called Wonder Bloom. And this nonprofit is focused on nature-based early childhood education. We believe that learning in nature nourishes the child's mind, body, and soul. Here are a couple of photos of the preschool in action. We're able to give children developmentally appropriate nature experiences and outdoor experiences at a young age. And we see how their connection with Earth influences how they talk about and treat plants, animals, and the humans around them. They are aware of where their food comes from because they grow it in the garden and they harvest eggs from the chickens. And instead of being scared and wanting to kill bugs, they're curious about them as important parts of the ecosystem. And, they also get bummed when they have to play inside because the air quality is unsafe, and we talk about that with them. And so they're also constantly navigating and practicing social cues, even while building with sticks and stumps. Some other important work that I've been involved in lately is with another nonprofit, and this time an environmental group called O2 Utah. And they are an environmental nonprofit whose mission is to clean up the state's air, eliminate our contributions to climate change through elections and policy. And they interview, vet, and then endorse candidates who they think will put forth these environmental policies and engage their community. And so when I go volunteering, I knock doors. Like in this picture, we're getting ready to knock doors in a neighborhood. And I talk to people in the neighborhoods about, these candidates and why I think it's important to support them. And you can see in this photo, my daughter is here in front of me, and I love bringing her along. She likes hanging out with me as we walk around. And then I also like to have her see the democratic process in action. And so the reason that this O2 Utah organization exists is that there aren't enough legislators, at least in our state, who are making decisions in the best interest of the environment. And so we're trying to get people into office who believe in the protecting the environment and conservation, then that they'll make good policy about it. But what I've noticed recently is like, yes, we are being successful in electing these candidates, but they get into the legislature and then they're the freshmen, they're the newbies. And so people aren't really listening to them. They don't have a lot of influence. So I started thinking about, okay, well, how can we make an impact with the legislators that are already in office? Is there a way to motivate them, inspire them so that they can also become good advocates for the environment? There's this pretty famous quote by an amazing Senegalese conservationist, Baba Diom, who said, "We only conserve what we love. We only love what we understand, and we only understand what we are taught." So this got me thinking about these elected officials that aren't making environment a priority, and maybe they don't love the earth like I do, and maybe they don't love it following the logic of this quote. Maybe they don't love it because they don't understand it, and maybe they don't understand it because they've never been taught. And I think back about the children that I work with at Wonderbloom, and they're being taught very young through hands-on experiences to love the earth. And I have no doubt that they will be champions and stewards of the earth when they grow up. But what can be done to teach adults to understand and love the earth? This presentation has 4 objectives. The first one is to review research about effective environmental advocacy and its importance. The second is to explore developmental theory in relation to attachment to Mother Earth. The third is participate in experiential learning to build or deepen our connection to the earth. And the fourth one is to build a toolkit for how to foster others' connection to the earth. Our earth is a place of endless wonder and inspiration. It gives us life, joy, identity, foundation for spirituality. An NIH article which was titled Indigenous Peoples, Traditional Knowledge, Climate Change and Health. And it was written by Indigenous scholars. And here's a quote from them. It says, "At the heart of Indigenous worldviews are a respect for natural or first law, which is based on ethical values of gratitude, reciprocity, responsibility, and belonging. These values form the basis of many Indigenous peoples' identity and the relationship with the natural world. Indigenous worldviews have increasingly been at the forefront of the planetary health and environmental restoration and conservation." End quote. The natural world is also a place of important resources for life to exist and thrive. The World Wildlife Federation states that the total value of benefits from natural resources, from forestry to fishing to farming and tourism, so this all adds up to at least 125 trillion every year. Also, our human health is inextricably linked to the environment. A report published by the World Health Organization in 2019, and this is pretty devastating. They estimate that 23% of human deaths in the world are linked to environmental risks like pollution, both air and water, and also chemical exposure. There are 5 main ways that an unhealthy planet is compromising human health, according to the United Nations Environment Program. This is the destruction of wild spaces, which facilitates the emergence of zoonotic diseases that's transferring from animals to people. Air pollution reduces quality of health and lowers life expectancy. Biodiversity loss compromises the nutritional value of food. Biodiversity loss also reduces the scope and efficacy of medicines. Pollution is threatening billions worldwide through contaminated water, and climate change introduces additional risks to health and safety with wildfires and flooding. with extreme weather patterns. And all of this is also leading to our planet's sixth mass extinction. So, whereas other mass extinctions in our planet's history were caused by natural events such as volcanic eruptions or asteroids, the sixth mass extinction that we are currently experiencing is human caused. Plants and animals are going extinct, and listen to this, at a rate of 1,000 to 10,000 times faster than if there was a natural extinction. The World Wildlife Federation says species do not exist in isolation, they are interconnected. A single species interacts with many other species in specific ways that produce benefits to people, like clean air, clean water, healthy soils for efficient food production. When one species goes extinct in an ecosystem, its population numbers decline so significantly that it cannot sustain its important function. Other species are affected, impacting the way the ecosystem functions and the benefits it provides. That's the end of that quote. So with that previous slide, these are a lot of the reasons that adults give for protecting the earth. But what about the ones that will inherit it from us? A study asked 33 children why they think the earth should be protected. There were two themes that emerged. The first one was about keeping humans safe and healthy with things like clean air and water. And the second was to protect nature itself, so the plants and animals that share this planet with us. When we think about all of these terrible things that humans are doing to the natural environment, it can feel overwhelming and discouraging. How are we ever going to make change for the better? And is it even possible? Well, research from political scientist Dr. Erica Chenoweth shows just how much impact people can have when it comes to driving change at a government level. So Dr. Chenoweth explains the 3.5% rule. And this shows through the research that governments are generally unable to withstand the force of 3.5% of the population engaging in nonviolent civil disobedience. I encourage you to watch the full TED Talk online by Dr. Chenoweth describing this 3.5% threshold. When you watch it, you'll notice that the research is referring specifically to citizens overthrowing an oppressive government. But I want you instead to think about this idea of the 3.5% of civil resistance in the context of mobilizing citizens for political change, such as environmental policy. 3.5% of the population doesn't seem like much, but it is quite a lot. And according to a poll from 2014 in the United States, only 1% of individuals in the US are very active in the democratic process. There's also a theory within the study of political science and communication called the spiral of silence. And that's when people's perception of the popularity of something affects how willing they are to express their own opinion about it. So imagine, just for a simple example, imagine the city wants to add a traffic light at the end of your block. And you think that adding this traffic light is a bad idea. But you've had some neighbors that have been very vocal in their support of it. And so that leads you to believe or have the perception that all the neighbors support the idea. In this scenario, you likely won't speak up about it and you'll remain silent because you think your opinion will be unpopular. A study in the US in 2022 showed that the spiral of silence applies to climate change action as well. Quoting the study, they said, quote, "When asked to estimate public support for measures such as carbon tax or the Green New Deal, most respondents put the number between 37 to 43%. In fact, polling suggests that the real number is almost double that, ranging from 66 to 80%. So just to rephrase this again, when you ask people in the United States, how popular do you think these climate policies are? They think that they only have a popularity about 37 to 43% of the American public. But when you actually poll people and ask them individually, do they support something like this? 66 to 80% of people actually do support it. And so the perception is that it's less popular, and therefore it reiterates the spiral of silence of people not really speaking up about how they feel about it or what their opinion is. So if we are to believe that as much as 80% of individuals in the United States support pro-environmental activities and laws, and what we learned from Dr. Chenoweth, that it only takes 3.5% of the population to create government change, then I think we have some work to do to change public perception, also to motivate lawmakers to make the changes that we want to see in our planet and that our planet so desperately needs. So to do this, we need to understand what motivates people to make change. So I'm going to share with you 4 motivators from the research for protecting the environment. So the first one is instrumental. So this is when one recognizes that protecting the earth has a value to us as humans. So like our health, our economics, our recreation. The second motivator is intrinsic. An intrinsic motivator is when we value nature outside of what it provides to humans. So this would be such as preserving ecosystems for animals, animal welfare. The next 2 categories have a relational component to them. So the first relational reason, the third in this list, is identity. Identity reasons for valuing nature are tied to self-concept, such as being a person who likes nature or appreciating spending time with nature with people around you that you enjoy spending time with. So it's interrelational. And then the second relational reason, the fourth one in this list, is moral. So this category is driven by people's values, principles, virtues, and responsibilities, such as a strong feeling of what is right and wrong, or belonging to a religious group that values nature as a creation of God. So 12,000 people were surveyed across 12 countries about their reasons for valuing nature, and then also in addition to that, their own pro-environmental behaviors. So people are more likely to say that they value nature because of the instrumental, intrinsic, and identity reasons. And even though moral reasons wasn't high on the list for why people value nature, it actually came out as a strong predictor of pro-environmental behaviors along with identity. So identity and moral were actually the 2 that predicted whether people were actually going to enact behaviors to protect the environment. So the authors in this study suggest that the common thread could be that when one person understands their impact on the environment, then they're more motivated to do something about it. There are 2 other studies I want to highlight showing about identity specifically as a motivator. So one study showed that to promote the identity of self and nature, individuals needed to experience authentic nature experiences. And that was consistent across a variety of cultural backgrounds. Another study showed that people are 12 times more likely to address climate change when the reason to protect it is for the next generation. So passing it on to our children. And this was also consistent cross-culturally. So taking all this information into consideration, I've been mulling over a theory mostly related to this identity-based motivator, which is people loving nature and then also wanting to experience it with their children or for their children. So I'm going to switch gears for a second and explain this idea. And this is also the third objective in this workshop. Before I founded Wonderbloom, in my academic work as a social scientist, I read, taught, and researched about attachment theory. Attachment is the strength and quality of a connection between a child and its caregivers. Most often in the research, It has been the mother-child relationship, although it really does apply to any consistent, caring adult in the child's life. This attachment relationship is the foundation for a myriad of healthy outcomes for children. And I began to wonder if this theory could be applied to attachment between the human race and our Mother Earth. So I'd like to start this section by acknowledging that I'm certainly not the first person that's had this idea or this light bulb go off. And even though I hadn't read anything about attachment to nature before, I did come across a few articles that had been written about it. And so I want to call them out specifically, and then I incorporated their ideas as well as my own in this next section. So the authors are Brendan Hill, Martin Jordan, and Matthew Jenkins. And there are probably more. These are just the three I came across. To set the stage for this, I will give a brief overview of attachment theory. Attachment refers to the connectedness in the relationship between two individuals. And in infancy, physical connectedness is paramount. And with this grows more psychological and emotional connection that we feel in adulthood. Attachment theory was based upon work by Harry Harlow to get to the bottom of the evolutionary basis for love. In his experiments, and what would now definitely be considered inhumane, Harlow separated infant monkeys from their mothers and gave them artificial mothers, in air quotes. And these mothers, which you can see in this picture, either gave them comfort in the form of a soft body or food with a bottle. But the monkey mother would not give them both. And the baby monkeys were observed to much prefer the soft mother and would spend most of their time clinging to it. And then John Bowlby expanded on this work by naming the attachment behavioral system in which infants rely on the responsiveness between them and their mothers in order to develop a secure feeling about their care and safety in the world. For example, an infant cries, a mother responds by cradling, feeding, changing a diaper. As the infant gets older, they might smile or coo. The mother then responds reciprocally with smiles or melodic words. And then Mary Ainsworth's research looked at the quality of the attachment and categorized three main styles and added a fourth later. Each of these styles have their own spectrum, but they are secure attachment, insecure resistant attachment, insecure avoidant attachment, and then later disorganized or fearful. Further research has shown that a secure attachment has positive effects later in life. There are so many. These are things like social competence, emotional awareness and regulation, problem solving, persistence, enthusiasm, fewer behavior problems, and really importantly, it predicts interpersonal closeness in adult relationships. In fact, the quality of attachment to a central caregiver in infancy is paramount to our development of sense of self and identity. In applying this to our attachment to our Mother Earth, Jenkins theorizes that our disconnection with nature, we have developed an insecure attachment. The insecure attachment, in turn, perpetuates our lack of care for the environment and our use of it as merely a commodity to be used for our benefit without concern for its limited resources. Similarly, Jordan views the dominant attachment pattern to nature as one of avoidance and ambivalence. And in Hill's thesis, he outlines our evolutionary connectedness to aspects of nature, including light, temperature, sound, and odor. And indeed, humans overwhelmingly prefer natural landscapes over man-made ones. There is hope in learning also from indigenous cultures who, by all accounts, have displayed a secure attachment through interdependence and reciprocity to Mother Earth for thousands of years. That is until colonialism then forced a divide. So this is where now I circle back to the discussion on the motivators for protecting the environment. So you recall that identity was a main motivating factor for adults to practice pro-environmental behaviors. So reasons that identity, just wanted to reiterate this again, that identity reasons for valuing nature are tied to self-concept, such as being a person who likes or enjoys nature, and then about relationships, so spending time with people in nature. In the next section of this presentation, I'll explore the attachment or identity building for Mother Earth through developmental stages. This is the third objective of this presentation, which is to participate in experiential learning to build or deepen connection with Mother Earth. We may be interested in developing our own secure attachment to Mother Earth, or we may want to foster a connection for others with Mother Earth, like how we talked about earlier in the instance of decision makers or elected officials, so that they can now have a sense of identity and love for the Earth. In either of these cases, it's important to go through the developmental stages of connection. A very recent meta-analysis published this year in 2024 in the journal Biological Conservation showed that people with more personal connection to nature are more likely to engage in ways to protect it. And I wonder, if we didn't develop this connection to Mother Earth as a child, if we can relearn it and create a new positive connection with her. The infant psychologist Alan Fogel has written and taught about how walking ourselves through self-awareness exercises through body movements and non-invasive touch, and he calls these experiential exercises. He taught about how these can help rebuild and recreate trust in the infant-parent relationship. I was really inspired by this and his techniques. And so for this presentation workshop, I've adapted and created a series of experiential exercises to replicate or rebuild our connection to Mother Earth. I suggest listening to these experiential exercises once without participating, and then roll back the presentation, listen again, now with participating. These exercises will practice mindfulness, about being in the moment. So if you notice your thoughts drifting away to other things, that's very normal and that's okay. Just when you notice that, gently refocus your attention back to the present moment. Development of attachment in infancy is first and foremost based on the senses and how the outside world is affecting us. We'll start with the senses of touch, smell, hearing, and sight. To prepare for this experiential exercise, find a quiet place outside where you can sit or lay. Or if that's not possible for you, sit near an open window. For this first exercise, your body should not touch the ground, so you may sit in a chair or lay on a blanket. This exercise is about getting you in touch with a baby-like state of mind and body. Now, as I talk you through this experiential exercise, there will be a lot of moments where I pause for you to be able to experience how it feels for your body. The infant experiential exercise will begin now. Once you are comfortable, close your eyes. Feel the air on your face. Feel the air on your eyebrows. Feel the air in your hair. What parts of your body are exposed to the air? One by one, draw your attention to those places, and without judgment, notice how they feel in relation to the air. What about the places that are not exposed to air? Notice how that feels different. How cool or warm is the air around you? Draw your attention to your breathing. Notice how the outside air is moving through your mouth or nose, into your body, and back out again. Are there any places in your body that you feel that air going or not going? Take 5 more breaths with this in mind. Breathe in once more, this time through your nose, and focus on smell. What smells are you sensing? Are they strong or mild? Can you imagine where that smell might be coming from? Now notice the sounds around you. How are those sounds affecting you? With your eyes still closed, bring your attention to the light. How bright or dark is it around you? Now slowly open your eyes and look around you as if you have never seen this world before. Notice how the light is different now that your eyes are open. Can you see the air now, or evidence of the air? Can you now see anything that you were smelling or hearing? Slowly awaken from your mindful state and reflect on this experience. And if it's helpful to you, do a journaling exercise to record any interesting things you noticed, felt, or learned about yourself and nature. The second experiential exercise is based on the development of attachment in toddlerhood. Toddlers are developing a sense of autonomy and the drive to interact with the world and their environment. Their interactions are still largely sensory, so inputs that are sensory are the utmost importance. And trial and error also is a form of learning that toddlers participate in hundreds of times a day. And so to prepare for this experiential exercise, gather a small nature sensory box. So a group of nature items such as maybe a pine cone, grass, flowers, pebbles, bark, And then find a place outside where you can sit, ideally on natural materials. So sit on grass, dirt, rock, or a stump. If that's not possible, sit in a chair or near a window. The intention of this exercise is to get you in touch with the toddler-like state of your mind and body. The toddler experiential exercise will begin now. Start by spending a full minute looking around you. Turn your attention to the ground. What are you sitting on? What parts of your body are touching the ground? What does the ground feel like on those parts of your body? Now take your hands and slowly touch the ground you're sitting on. Explore it with your hands. The hands and fingers are extremely sensitive touch receptors. You have 3,000 nerve receptors in each fingertip. Take out the tray of collected nature items. Now smell each one. If you're comfortable and if it feels safe, touch your tongue on each item. Besides noticing the taste, also notice how the texture feels on your tongue. Now take each item and hold it in the palm of your hand, one by one. How do they feel different? How does this one feel the same as the last one? What do you think the purpose is for the different textures? Now take one item in the palm of your hand and squeeze it. Does it resist your pressure or does it succumb to it? How does it change shape after a squeeze? If you'd like to squeeze a different item, go ahead and do that now. Now rub an item together in both hands. Rub it as fast or as slow as you'd like to. Do you have any remnants of that item on your hand? What does that feel like? Do you feel like exploring these objects in any other way? Do you want to pick at something or pull it apart? Do you want to bang two of them together? Do you feel like throwing anything? Go ahead and explore these in any way you'd like. Slowly awaken from your mindful state and reflect on this experience. And if it's helpful to you, do some journaling about it. Record any interesting things you noticed or felt. Did this deepen your connection with nature? The third experiential exercise will place you in early childhood, so the preschool age. Early childhood is a time of taking initiative with your newfound abilities. You're beginning to understand another person's point of view, you're navigating social interactions, and you're problem solving using prior knowledge and goals. To prepare for this experiential exercise, gather mud in a container and a short stick between 6 to 12 inches long, and paper. You can easily make your own mud by mixing dirt and water together to your desired consistency. And then you'll find a place outside where you can sit with a flat surface in front of you. And if that's not possible, sit near a window at a table. Be prepared to get messy. The intention of this exercise is to get you in touch with your preschooler-like state of mind and body. The early childhood experiential exercise will begin now. Pick up a stick and swirl it around in the mud. Notice how the viscosity of the mud resists your force. When you're ready, take the stick out of the mud and paint a mark on your paper. You can dip the stick back in anytime you need more paint. Make several more marks. Now try holding the stick at different places. So, adjusting your grip on the stick, you could hold it close to the paper or far away. Pay attention to how these different grips on your stick give you different results. Which grip is the most useful? Which grip is the least useful? Art in early childhood is more about experimenting with and experiencing the materials to create, rather than about being concerned about the final product. Let yourself embrace this intention as you paint. If you're comfortable with touching the mud, dip a finger in it and explore how it feels to finger paint. Every child and adult has different sensory tolerance. Some like a lot of input and some not so much. There's some children that would bathe in mud if they could, and others only want to touch it with some kind of tool like a paintbrush or stick. Whatever makes sense to you and your nature experience, do that. Maybe you're going to stick just with the stick. And maybe for you, one finger's not enough and you want to grab a fistful of mud and smear it on that paper. If that feels right, then do it. The art of henna, called Mendi in Hindi and Urdu, is the practice of decorating the skin with a paste made from the leaves of the henna tree. Let's try this out. Use your stick or your finger to paint a design on your arm or hand. How else would you like to experiment with or experience this mud. Go ahead and do that now. Slowly awaken from your mindful state and reflect on this experience. If it is helpful to you, do a journaling exercise. Record any interesting things you noticed or felt about yourself and nature. Our last experiential exercise is called Nature Balance, and it's for embodying a school age development. School age is a time of recognizing your own individuality. There's a lot of difference between ourselves and others. School-age children seek acceptance and praise from those around them. They feel pride in their accomplishments. In addition, they are developing strong motor skills like running, climbing, and balance. To prepare for this experiential exercise, gather several rocks of various sizes and find a place outside where you can move and sit. If that's not possible, stand and sit near a window or at a table. The intention of this exercise is to get you in touch with a school-like state of mind and body. The school-age experiential exercise will begin now. First, stand in nature. Take 3 deep breaths. If you are comfortable, remove your socks and shoes and stand barefoot. Wiggle your toes and feel your feet and its sensations. If you are able, stand on one foot. Feel how the bones, muscles, ligaments, and tendons of your foot and toes constantly make minor adjustments to keep you balanced. Now switch feet and balance on the other foot. Now plant both feet firmly on the ground and feel the solid earth beneath you. Your feet are solid and connected to the earth, keeping you anchored and secure. Take a deep breath. And this time think to yourself, like a mountain, I stand tall and proud. I am a unique and important part of this world. When you are ready, take a seat with the rocks in front of you. Pick up one rock and notice its properties. The weight, shape, size. Set it down and pick up another rock and do the same. Now when you put this second rock down, balance it on the rock from before. Now continue with each rock, picking it up, noticing its unique properties, balancing it on the one before, creating a tower. Just as your feet and toes wiggled to balance your body a moment ago, these rocks may wiggle to balance on their brothers and sisters. If one or more fall, that's okay. Try again. Try a different sequence or pattern, or maybe build a different structure entirely. When you feel satisfied with your balanced structure, take a minute to gaze at it. Slowly awaken from your mindful state and reflect on this experience. Like as before, if it's helpful to do some journaling. Make some notes about what you felt, what you didn't feel, what your connection to nature was. So far in this workshop, we've reviewed the research about effective environmental advocacy and its importance. Next, we explored developmental theory in relation to attachment to our Mother Earth. Third, we participated in experiential learning to build or deepen our connection to Mother Earth. And this last section of this presentation is about building a toolkit to foster others' connection to Mother Earth, specifically to build this connection with decision makers or elected officials, with the aim to motivate them to make decisions in favor of environmental stewardship. Now, I wish I had a ready-made toolkit to hand over to you as a surefire way to motivate. Unfortunately, that's just not possible because our communities each have unique environmental needs, and our decision makers, they're all different. They have different platforms, approaches, and values around these issues. And as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, I have chosen to volunteer for an air quality group because in Utah, where I live, that's a huge problem, but that might not be a concern in your area. So this toolkit is based on some research of things to consider when advocating for your needs. The first thing you need to do is solidly understand your own connection with nature. Know your why. Why do you care about nature? Why does it matter to you? How secure is your attachment to Mother Earth, and why is that important? Second, decide what environmental issue is the most important to you. Is it clean water, clean air, access to public lands? Maybe it's carbon emissions, overdevelopment, conservation, endangered species. Maybe it's something else entirely. So you'll need to know what's the one issue that's the most important thing to you. The third step, and this will take the longest, is do your research. So what steps have already been taken in your community to address this issue? And do you have any idea on what's been the most or the least effective? There's a common phrase in activism that goes, nothing about us without us. So when you think about these strategies for addressing environmental issues, who has been included in these conversations and in the approach? Are there people that should have been included, like the nothing about us without us, that weren't? And consider, race, religion, ethnicity, ability, heritage, political affiliation, income, job status, or age. In Utah, the air quality affects every single person. So it's not a left of the aisle, right of the aisle kind of issue. It's not about, it's not divided by age or job status. It affects everybody. It's also important in this third research phase to be aware of our own personal biases or privileges, or maybe a framework of colonialism that we have. We all have some of these surrounding the way we think and the way we solve problems, and so becoming aware of that is really important. And as we take a seat at these tables we want to be able to promote the voices of people that are marginalized, especially Indigenous voices, especially people that have an understanding and connection and feel a responsibility to Mother Earth. The fourth thing is get together. So maybe you're going to get together with a group that's already doing advocacy work, and so you're going to collaborate with them. Or maybe you're the only one so far that's been bringing up this issue that you know of, and you just want to go straight to your decision makers and make a meeting with them or write an email. You'll want to include your why first and foremost. And then you want to prompt them to think about their why. Do they have a connection with Mother Earth? Have they since lost it? Did they never have the connection to begin with? Would they be open to participating in some nature connection activity, since we know that how important that is in motivating people? Maybe you could bring some of their colleagues together and do some of these experiential exercises that we've worked through in this workshop. You'll want to share in this fourth phase of this toolkit what's most important to you. Ask your decision makers what they've done to address that, what has worked or not worked. You'll want to listen to them, validate them. These people in places of power, they often have a lot to do, a lot of things to consider, and a lot of people trying to bend their ear. And so have that empathy from that point of view of where they're coming from, and validate the good things that they're doing. And then maybe pitch some ideas in the research you've been working on too. The fifth item is thanking them for their time, letting them know that you're going to follow up, and then follow up. And when you do follow up, recruit 2 people to come with you. Remember the 3.5% rule we talked about before? You can't start with mobilizing 3.5% of the population of your community. Maybe you can, but most of us can't. And so you can start somewhere. You can motivate and mobilize 2 more people than you. And this really shows these decision makers and these legislators that you're not alone, and that more people feel this way and are thinking about it and are willing to do something about it. This will go a long way. We've covered a lot of ground today on this topic. I wanted to thank you for joining me in this presentation and workshop. And before I end, I want to focus on a few key points. The first one is that pro-environmental action, it's popular, and we need it as soon as possible. The second thing is that identity-based reasons for protecting the earth are the most effective at motivating people to action. So helping people get in touch with their identity and connection to nature. This brings us to our third piece. It is possible to develop a secure attachment to Mother Earth based on authentic nature experiences. And then fourth, perhaps we can promote attachment in our decision makers to motivate them to make positive change for our environment. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and learn and experience these things along with me. I really wish you the best. I wish you the best in your work, working with the environment, working with children, working with nature. And if you want to connect with me, my contact information is available for you, and I would love to hear from you. Thanks again.